Your smartphone indicates you are currently drifting 3,000 miles off the coast of Africa, yet your lungs are filling with the bone-dry, dust-heavy air of a subterranean vault deep beneath the heart of Rome. The blue dot on your screen flickers in a frantic search for satellites that no longer exist in your current coordinate, desperately trying to reconcile a GPS location in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with a physical reality trapped under centuries of limestone. This is the spatial paradox of the Forbidden Room, a chamber absent from every official floor plan, a place where the coordinates of the physical world are rewritten, holding records that suggest the world we think we inhabit is merely a curated fragment of a much larger, stranger reality. The silence in these deep archives is not the absence of sound, but a heavy, pressurized weight that rings in the ears. For centuries, the Archivio Apostolico Vaticano has served as the ultimate repository for the Western world's most sensitive secrets. While the public index allows scholars to request specific papers from the past millennium, there is a secondary, unlisted catalog accessible only to those with clearance that transcends national borders. In this shadow index, one finds references to the Forbidden Room, a space constructed not just to store paper, but to contain information that could destabilize the fundamental understanding of human history. To enter this space is to leave the 21st century behind, not just chronologically, but dimensionally. The air feels unnaturally cold, regardless of the season outside, a chill that seems to emanate from the stone itself. The walls are lined with shelving units made of materials that do not tarnish or age, housing documents that have survived fires, floods, and the rise and fall of empires. Those who have been granted temporary access speak of a feeling of being watched, not by cameras or guards, but by the weight of the information itself. It is as if the knowledge contained within these walls possesses a form of collective consciousness, a gravity that pulls at the mind and demands recognition. One particular parchment, whispered about by the few who have glimpsed the inner circle, is said to be a projection of the Earth as it appeared before the last great cataclysm. It depicts a sprawling continent in the center of the Pacific Ocean, detailed with mountain ranges, river systems, and city-states that predate Sumer and Egypt by thousands of years. This is not the work of a dreamer or a storyteller. It is a meticulously drafted navigational chart with celestial alignments accurate to a sky that existed 12,000 years ago. The precision of the coastline suggests an aerial perspective, a feat of cartography that should have been impossible for the era in which it was produced. Yet, the ink is ancient, and the vellum is authentic. The maps are often accompanied by journals written in languages that defy standard classification. These texts do not speak of gods or myths, but of vessels of thought and gateways of resonance. They contain the earliest hints of a technology that sounds like science fiction: instantaneous translocation. These journals describe a process where a person could step through a specific point in space and emerge thousands of miles away without crossing the physical distance in between. It is not presented as magic or divine intervention, but as a lost branch of physics, a way of interacting with the very fabric of reality that has since been forgotten or suppressed by the keepers of the status quo. Walking among these shelves, one begins to realize that the history books provided to the public are a simplified, sanitized version of a much more complex narrative. Some maps in the collection show the coastline of Antarctica completely free of ice, detailing subglacial rivers and deep valleys that were only confirmed by modern ground-penetrating radar in the last few decades. This raises a question that the keepers of the room prefer to leave unanswered. How did an ancient cartographer see through 2 miles of solid ice? The implication is that our ancestors possessed tools or perspectives that we are only now beginning to rediscover through the lens of modern technology. The technology of displacement is perhaps the most guarded secret of all. Tucked away in lead-lined chests are diagrams that look strikingly like modern circuit boards, yet they are etched onto sheets of hammered gold and copper. They describe the alignment of specific minerals and the use of resonant sound to thin the barrier between dimensions. The interest of the archive is not purely historical or academic. There are whispers that researchers within these hidden walls have spent centuries attempting to decode these light bridges, recognizing that the power to move instantly across the globe would be the ultimate form of influence, rendering borders and physical defenses obsolete. The connection between the lost continents and this displacement technology is not accidental. The ancient maps mark specific nodes where the Earth's magnetic field is notably weaker or more erratic, providing what the texts describe as ideal conditions for spatial bridging. These locations correspond with some of the world's most mysterious megalithic structures: Giza, Tiwanaku, Yonaguni, and Easter Island. The Forbidden Room holds the master key that links these far-flung sites into a single, cohesive global network, suggesting they were never intended to be mere tombs or temples, but functional components of a planetary machine that we no longer know how to operate. One chilling account from the mid-19th century tells of a young monk tasked with dusting the lower shelves of the Shadow Archive. He reportedly came across a leather-bound book that vibrated with a faint, rhythmic hum. When he opened it, shifting geometric patterns seemed to move beneath his gaze, rearranging themselves in real time. For a brief, terrifying moment, the stone walls of the vault became transparent, revealing a sky with two suns and a city constructed of what looked like liquid glass. He was found hours later in a state of catatonic shock, his mind unable to process what he had seen. The book was removed from the shelf and was never seen again. Its location moved to an even deeper level of the vault. The secrecy of the Forbidden Room is maintained through a rigid system of oaths and extreme compartmentalization. Even high-ranking officials within the hierarchy are given only fragments of the truth. One individual might be permitted to study the Pacific maps, but will be told nothing of the displacement technology. Another might study the linguistic roots of the ancient journals, but remain unaware of the geographical nodes they describe. This ensures that no single person holds the entire puzzle, preventing any one individual from grasping the full scope of the reality being hidden from the world at large. Scholars who have attempted to bring these findings to light often find their careers stalled or their research notes mysteriously misplaced. There is a subtle but firm pressure to maintain the status quo, to keep the public focused on a timeline of human achievement that begins with hunter-gatherers and ends with the Industrial Revolution. The preservation of this narrative depends on the belief that we are the pinnacle of human development, while the maps in the Forbidden Room suggest we are merely the survivors of a much grander, more sophisticated era that ended in fire and flood. The maps also contain dire warnings. Notations in the margins of the translocation journal speak of the cost of the bridge and tears in the veil. They suggest that when you create a doorway in space, you cannot always control what comes through from the other side. This may be the true reason for the extreme secrecy surrounding the room. It is not just about hoarding power, it is about preventing a repeat of a catastrophe that once wiped entire continents off the map. The light bridges are as dangerous as they are revolutionary, capable of holding space but also capable of fracturing the stability of our environment if used without the proper understanding. As you eventually exit the vault and return to the sun-drenched streets of Rome, the transition is jarring. Your smartphone vibrates in your pocket, and the GPS recalibrates. The blue dot settles back onto the familiar grid of the city, placing you firmly at the corner of a well-known piazza.
The espresso here is excellent.
The world looks normal again.
I agree. And
the tourists are taking
wonderful.
photos, The cafes are serving espresso, and the history of the world feels solid and settled. The chaos of the deep archive seems like a fever dream, something that could not possibly exist in the light of day. But for a moment, you still feel the chill of the forbidden room. You can still feel the faint vibration of the light bridges humming in the soles of your feet. You realize that beneath the pavement, the cathedrals, and the ruins of the Roman Empire, there is a door to a world without borders. It is a place where lost continents still exist in the records of the silent keepers, and where distance is only a matter of knowing where to step. The reality you see on the surface is a thin veneer, a stage set designed to keep the audience from looking behind the curtain. The Forbidden Room remains a silent sentinel, guarding blueprints of a reality we are not yet permitted to inhabit. The maps are still there, tucked away in the dark, gathering the dust of centuries. The hum continues vibrating through the ancient stone, ignored by the millions of people walking above. And the lost continents wait, recorded in ink and gold, for a time when the world is ready to remember what it has lost. We walk on the surface of a mystery, unaware that the ground beneath us is thin, and that the coordinates of our lives are only one page turn away from changing forever. The weight of the archive is the weight of a forgotten identity. We are told we are a young species, slowly climbing the ladder of progress from primitive origins. But in the shadows of the Vatican, the records tell a different story. They tell of a humanity that once commanded the stars and the spaces between them. A humanity that fell from a great height and spent 10,000 years forgetting how to fly. The Forbidden Room is not just a library of secrets. It is a mirror reflecting a version of ourselves we are too afraid to recognize in the modern age. The maps detail the world not as it is, but as it was, and perhaps as it could be again if the right hands find the keys. They show that the geography of our planet is not fixed, and neither is the geography of our potential. Every time a researcher enters that room, they are reminded that the boundaries of our world are artificial, constructed by those who fear the chaos of true discovery. The displacement technology, the subglacial rivers, and the cities of glass are all pieces of a broken mirror. When the pieces are finally put back together, the image they reflect will not be the world we know, but the world as it truly exists. A vast, interconnected network of points, where the past and the future are separated by nothing more than a thin, vibrating veil. Until then, the blue dot on your screen will continue to tell you exactly where you are, providing the comfort of a known location and a predictable life. But you will always know that 3,000 miles away, in the middle of a coordinate that should be empty ocean, there is a ghost of a continent that the ancient maps say is real. And deep beneath Rome, in a room that officially does not exist, the pulse of the ancient world beats on in the dark, waiting for someone to find the courage to open the door once more and face the truth of what we have forgotten.